Today I'll be interviewing Ms. Rose Harden.
That's right.
Ms. Rose Harden has an extensive dance background, beginning with,
Afro-Haitian,
and then,
West African,
and then,
hip-hop jazz,
and then,
and then belly dance.
right
Wow.
on. I first met Miss Rose Harden when she was a member of Ultra Gypsy in 2001. Jill Parker brought her and Sharon Kihara down to my little town in San Diego to dance. And there's Miss Jill Parker and Olivia Kissel. That takes a lot of explanation, but whatever.
Your first style of dance, was that modern?
No, actually, my first style of dance was belly dance. I
wow.
started, I never had formal training until belly dance, and then after that, I took hip hop, modern, and a bunch of random stuff.
Yeah. But modern really strongly informs your performances.
Modern and yoga.
Yeah. And your warm up and everything.
Yes.
How many years have you been doing modern?
Off and on throughout my dance career, but never as intensely as with belly dance.
And yet you really fuse them well. When did you decide you wanted to fuse or it was okay to fuse?
I'm a very untrained dancer, and I've through a lot of self-exploration.
Wow.
I've kind of stumbled. I feel like I always call it the art of the insane, because I have stumbled upon a lot of stuff. It's like art school nerd stuff, but I've stumbled upon a lot of stuff that then I learn later in a modern class. I'm like, oh, I did that. I understand. But I probably could have cut the process by taking classes earlier in my life. So,
I think one of the really wonderful things that I saw going down and having that relationship between Ultra Gypsy and Urban Tribal at the time was that, you saw Jill Parker, really started to incorporate lots of different elements that were, very influenced by the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yes.
And kind of breaking out of the ATS format and that formula, and going down to San Diego and seeing what you were doing, I felt like that both groups were working in a very similar way, but on a different path, but with the same sort of innovation, but with different influences and different flavors. And it was, at the time, there weren't many people doing that, and it was kind of like finding sort of kindred spirits, even though there was, much more of a hip-hop influence in the very beginning with Urban Tribal and your vision, and Ultra Gypsy more of sort of like a, I don't know if it's like a club influenced or just whatever the sort of alternative punk culture in San Francisco was, and dance classes and people's influence there. But that was always, I felt like those two groups kind of really were moving at the same pace with fusion.
Right.
The F word.
Right. What do you like to call what do you like to call your dance style?
Oh boy, that's the $10 million question. I don't know. I feel like now there's sort of this box for tribal fusion, and in the beginning, tribal fusion, when it was really people branching out of ATS,
Right.
And incorporating other things that were resonating for them. And now it's so wide open. Now you can almost classify tribal fusion as sort of a very particular thing if you're talking about like pure tribal fusion. And now it's wide open, and there's so many different things. It's like, I don't know what you call it yet, and maybe it's still kind of it's in the dryer right now and it's not out yet.
When did you know you were a dancer?
Am I a dancer?
Rose is a dancer.
I wouldn't say that I necessarily had like a I didn't have a light bulb moment for that.
I see you as such an all-around artist. Like, you do so many forms of art. You went to school for glass, right? And you do like so much art your whole life.
Yeah, it's really about crafting for me. It's all a part of a artistic process of crafting something. Performance, visual, it all goes into the same thing. So I didn't necessarily have that moment of like, and now I'm a dancer.
I think the stage and where you perform or where you know you're going to plan on performing affects what you can do choreographically or even symbolically or even storytelling wise. How, if you guys have anything to say about that, the places you've performed and how it's actually affected how you've grown as a dancer or a choreographer.
With my company, we started in cafes and bars, that kind of scene, but then went on to do a lot more stage stuff, probably similar.
Yeah, similar. Although when I actually first started working with Ultra Gypsy, it was actually I was being brought in to do the larger stage shows, and the more core company at that time was doing the cafe shows. So I kind of went in the other direction. I was doing big stage stuff before I was doing the cafe stuff. But I think that one of the things for me that I've always loved about your work as a choreographer is the layers and multiple things happening at one time, that especially when I feel like you were first presenting work that really had that, most belly dance performance that I was seeing really didn't have that, and I was really struck by how successful you were at that, and I think that that's something that I have always admired about you and your work, and in that sense. No, it's inspiring, because so often you learn a choreography, 8 counts this, 8 counts that, in a line, and maybe you add some staging later, and I always felt like what I saw in your work is that the staging wasn't an afterthought. It wasn't something you threw on to fill a space, but that you saw the piece as a multi-dimensional movement, and I have always been very inspired by that.
Yeah, it's not like just the choreography is that individual person, then it happens to be 5 people doing it. The choreography involves the multiple people on stage interacting or moving across space.
And I think that's influenced what a lot of people are doing now.
Absolutely.
A lot of what you see, I think, is very influenced by the fact that you were one of the first people really, really working in that way, in belly dance.
Belly dance.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's because of I came from an art school thing like you, and I was a photographer. So for me, I see the shapes and then the negative space of people. And so I think that might have been it. And then also I prefer interaction. I'm not solo or front and center performance has never felt great to me. So I prefer to have people and be working with them on something, and then people are watching it. So that kind of has felt better to me than to be more front presentational. So maybe that's kind of why that developed in that way.
What about your glass blowing or other art things? How has that affected maybe the way you see your art of dance?
For me, all the work that I was doing with glass blowing was very physical. It all had to do with physical movement. Glass blowing is an incredibly physical form. So I think for me that was just something that I always enjoyed very much, just to have that physical crafting. And then the process that you go through in art school with the editing and how you sort of cycle through ideas and edit through that and critique, I still very much use that in my work. Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe the dedication and the hard work that has to be put into your craft.
Anything you feel passionate about.
Yeah. You both teach. What do you make sure, or what do you try to impart to your students?
For me, I want them to dance bigger, and I want them to be strong. So that's kind of like the focus.
Yeah.
Be big, be strong.
I like to give my students tools that they can use to make their dancing better and stronger, technique and concept, and be able to move around with it, and more not like giving my format of learning or a particular movement, but giving them ways in which to expand and improve and get more out of their dancing, and to be able to express more of what they want, to tap into that.